Yesterday, the news site Breitbart posted a video of a group of physicians giving a press conference about medical advances in the fight against COVID. Some of the news the doctors delivered was hopeful because there is hopeful news to report. 17 million people saw that video. The president retweeted it. This enraged Democrats. Any scientific advancement that reduces the suffering of Americans in an election year is a threat to Joe Biden's campaign. So they decided to pull that video off the internet. 15 years ago, that would have been absurd. You couldn't have done it. This was America. You weren't allowed to ban a news story just because it might hurt your candidate's poll numbers. In any case, it was impossible. There were too many news outlets then. No one could control them all. That has changed. While the rest of us were sleeping, or in the case of so many of our senators taking payoffs from Google, a tiny number of left-wing corporations took virtually complete control of all news and information in this country. Now, if Democrats want to erase a politically inconvenient news story fewer than 100 days before an election, they can do that. And they did do it. Big tech censored science. They pulled the video of doctors in lab coats talking about coronavirus research, and they hid that video from the public. That's exactly what the Chinese government so often does, except when Silicon Valley erases your freedoms, they lecture you as they do it. They've got all the ruthlessness of Chinese authoritarians, but with double the self-righteousness. It's the American version. Thankfully, none of this applies to us at Fox News. We happen to work for one of the very few mass media companies left in America that is not controlled by Google or Facebook. We can report the news honestly. Big tech can't censor us, at least not right now. You're not allowed to watch these physicians on YouTube tonight, but we can show them to you here, and we're going to. Here's Dr. Bob Hamilton.
I think that is important that all of us who are here today realize that our kids are not really the ones who are driving the infection. It is being driven by older individuals. And yes, we can send the kids back to school, I think, without fear. We need to not act out of fear. We need to act out of science. We need to do it. We need to get it done.
What you just heard is not a crackpot theory. It is at the center of mainstream science. Increasingly, what you just heard represents the consensus among physicians and researchers around the world. Children are not meaningful vectors for the coronavirus. Worldwide, there is not a single recorded case of a student infecting a teacher with the virus, not one case. And that's why so many nations around the world are reopening their schools this fall. But we're not. We've got a presidential election in November. Children must suffer so that Joe Biden can win that election. That is the imperative, the political imperative driving our so-called health policy. But you're not allowed to know that, so they pulled the video telling you that. Here's another physician from the same press conference called Dr. Stella Immanuel.
There is a cure for COVID. There is a cure for COVID. It's called hydroxychloroquine, it's called zinc, it's called Zithromax. And it is time for the grassroots to wake up and say, no, we're not going to take this any longer. We're not going to die.
Dr. Immanuel's claim is harder for us to endorse. Is hydroxychloroquine part of a cure for the coronavirus? We don't know the answer. We do know that many frontline physicians around the world have prescribed hydroxychloroquine and continue to prescribe it. We've interviewed some of them on the show. The drug appears to show promise in treating some early-stage patients. That's good news. The science on hydroxychloroquine is not settled either way. Science rarely is settled. That's why it's science and not, for example, radical feminist theory. Science is constantly evolving as we test and retest our assumptions against observed reality. That's the whole point of science. Unfortunately, reality is not the point of politics. Winning is the point of politics, so they scrubbed that video. Here's more of it.
My message to Dr. Anthony Fauci is, when is the last time you put a stethoscope on a patient? That when you start seeing patients, like we see on a daily basis, you will understand the frustration that we feel. And you need to start feeling for American people like we, the frontline doctors, feel. And you need to start realizing that they are listening to you. And if they're going to listen to you, you got to give them a message of hope.
Oh, that clip enraged them. Because above all, you must never mock the sainted Anthony Fauci. Under no circumstances can you note that Dr. Fauci is in fact very often a hypocritical buffoon who refuses to admit what he clearly doesn't know. If you say that out loud, they will cancel you. Fauci is too useful to the Biden campaign. So until November, Fauci's word must be law, even when it doesn't make sense. Criticize Fauci and you will disappear from the internet. And so Dr. Emanuel disappeared from the internet. And then Google's countless toadies online did the cleanup work, the ugly stuff. The Daily Beast attacked Dr. Emanuel for the crime of getting her medical degree in Africa, and then suggested she believed in witchcraft, because, you know, Africans do that, right? So political correctness is fine with the Daily Beast most of the year, but this is election season, so Dr. Emanuel must be destroyed. The Daily Beast was happy to help achieve that. So, by the way, were the think tank libertarians, including some still posing as conservatives, people you read, people who work for places